Hello, I'm David Rubenstein. Many of you may know me for my efforts in private equity over the past 3 decades, and I have spent most of the last 3 decades working on private equity as an investor and so forth. But like all of you, I need to have some outside interests. I'm not a good golfer, not a good tennis player, don't know how to sail, don't know how to ski. So what did I decide to do to take up some my loose time that I might have available outside of finance? Well, I decided a few years ago I would try to do something called interviewing. And I did well enough at it so that somebody gave me a TV show on Bloomberg TV. Now, over the last 6 years, I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of individuals who are thought by many people to be leaders in finance, in sports, in other types of business areas, in culture, and also in government. And as a result of that, I put a book together recently called How to Lead, which talks about what leaders do as a result of their traits in their various industries. Now, this is a book that I'm not pitching people to buy because it is a book that is, all the proceeds are going to charity. So I'm not trying to make any money from this. I'm just trying to give people some perspective on what it is that makes people leaders. Now, why is this important? Why should we care about leadership? Well, we have 7.5 billion people on the face of the earth, and we can't have 7.5 billion people leading everybody. It would be chaotic. So we have to have some people emerge who are leaders, who are role models, who help direct what other people might do and might in turn get these people to be stimulated so that they become leaders in future generations. So what did I learn? Well, let me just talk about 2 things. What it takes to have been a leader and become a leader, and what it takes to remain a leader. So what I found as a result of interviewing several hundred people, many of whom I put in the book, people like Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, George Bush, Bill Clinton, famous basketball coach, Coach K, and other people in the political world or in the business world. What did I learn? Well, I learned that all of them came from relatively modest circumstances. It's very rare to come from a very wealthy family and emerge as a leader, though it does happen. But generally, people worked their way up from very modest circumstances. They had a vision of what they wanted to do, and they also worked very hard with a tunnel vision focus to get there. So Bill Gates, for example, knew what he wanted to do in software, or Jeff Bezos knew what he wanted to do in selling something over the internet, books initially, but then later other things. Or Jack Nicklaus knew he wanted to be a good golfer. Whatever it was, they were focused on it. And when they became a leader, what did they do? Well, they tried to do several things. One, they liked to communicate with other people, to show other people how to become a leader themselves. They began to be people who learned how to work with others, how to share the credit, how to be somewhat humble, somewhat modest about it. I would say having humility is better than having arrogance, so obviously you can be a good leader as well if you're arrogant, but generally the people in this book are people who have some modesty, some self-effacement. I also learned that the best leaders are people who are rise in an occasion. Abraham Lincoln would never have been heard of if we didn't have the Civil War, or FDR probably wouldn't be well known if we hadn't had World War II. So you need somebody who rises in a certain occasion and stands up when a time is really tough. And so what I've learned is that anybody can really be a leader if they're focused on it, but it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a willingness to share the credit. It takes a willingness to communicate what it is you're doing, where you're trying to take people, why you're trying to lead them. And the best way to communicate with people is learning how to talk well, write well, but the most effective way to be a leader is to lead by example. George Washington at Valley Forge, he didn't go down the street to stay at the Four Seasons. He stayed with his troops, suffered with his troops, led by example. And so what I hope to do is to have young people read this book and say, this is something I want to be. I can be a leader as well. And I hope that as a result of this book and other kinds of things that people talk about in leadership, we will produce the next generation of leaders, and we'll have other people who in the future will be the ones that tell younger people how they can be leaders. But for the time being, I'd like people to take a look at this book and think about what leadership is all about. And think about what you can do as a leader, how you can make the world a better place by being an effective leader. And that's what I've really tried to do in this book, is distill the secrets of the best leaders and explain how they became leaders, why they want to be leaders, what they hope to be as leaders, and how they hope to be role models for other people. So I hope all of you think about what you're doing as a leader, how people look up to you, because if you're at this conference, obviously people look up to you. And what are you doing to make other people want to follow what you're doing? Think about that regularly, and I think you'll also turn out to be a very effective leader, and I hope I have a chance at some point to interview you on one of my shows and have you in my next book. Thank you very much.